Hello, my name is Sunita and welcome to my audio update on the cosmic calendar, what's happening in the cosmos. So this quarter is going to be a little bit different. I've decided to do a recording, a voice recording, because it's getting a little bit hard just to put everything down on paper. And I thought it'd be a nice way to connect to my audience in this way. So you get to hear my voice and get to hear how I churn out some of the intuitive information. So it's a little bit of a download as we speak as well. So let's have a look at this quarter, and I'm going to just do a little bit of a recap from April and go into May, which we're currently in, and what's coming in June. So aside to the COVID-19, the dreaded word, it's been really a bit of a shock for everybody, and hopefully we're going to learn the lessons in what it's teaching us. And it's probably teaching us more than anything on how we are lacking in connecting to each other, but also to deeper parts of ourselves. So one of the keys to spiritual development and growth is always, and many religions talk about this, is about staying in the present, reacting and responding to every moment as it occurs, which is really, really hard for everybody. So a lot of fear comes from future, what's happened in the future, what's going to happen, the worries and the stresses that we have every day. So in this audio, what I want to do is just to go over some of the tips and tricks and that I can share with you about what's coming and what you're probably experiencing, like many people out there, and how to cope and manage this really difficult time. And it's different all over the world. Some states, for example, in Australia, have decided they're going to go back a little bit. Some are going forward a little bit. So it's basically ever changing, which is what occurs in life. So cosmically, what's happening is that there's been a huge shift in planets in the last couple of months. So a lot of you, I know sensitive people amongst us, have experienced this change and shift in energy. And you're right, there is something going on, a lot of things going on. 2020, my prediction last year, was going to be a double wave of shifts in consciousness and energy, almost like a huge clear out. What do we need to get rid of that can help us to move forward and plan and how to be for the next 10 years? Because the fact that 2020 is the beginning of a decade is also numerologically such a huge thing as well. So let's have a look. April, just do a quick recap on what was going on in April. So we saw this kind of pandemic hit us a little bit and knock the wind out of us. We were starting to wonder how we were going to cope. There was all of these things happening globally, and a lot of people jumped on board with the fear that was happening. So April cosmically and numerologically became a month where you were planning. There was a lot of hard work going on. It was really hard to focus and get organized. And that's literally what we were doing on a daily basis. We had to have a plan. And that's exactly what April numerologically is about. Now, May is kind of the month as a numerologically, the number 5, the change. So we've planned, we've focused, we've got organized in April, and now we're ready and waiting for change, and we're going with the flow. So the question to ask yourself is, have you been flexible and adaptable? Because fear comes in when you're trying to control things that are out of your control. Delving into what makes you feel stable, safe, and secure is what May is about. So it's kind of identifying what's throwing me off kilter and what do I need to do to make myself feel secure. So as you know, end of April and May, a lot of people were in this isolation, and we're just starting to come out of that. And of course, you know, we're in the 21st of May now. We're in the last couple of weeks of May, or the last week, and we're starting to kind of peak outside. So as we go into June, what's June bringing us? The June focus is, as a numerologically number 6, is on ourselves, is on the home, our nest. And the focus is to bring balance and harmony at home with your loved ones, because probably a lot of you are realizing that I feel disconnected to myself and to family around me. And then everybody's kind of nested in their cave. And now it's kind of, let's rebuild, and how do we need to have balance and harmony at home? So it's all about the domestic matters, the nest, so that it's a priority every month. But also, if you think about seasonally, we're going into, especially in Australia, we're going into winter period. So there is that time of hermiting and retreating, you know, animals, even, you know, nature, animals are kind of burrowing, they're sort of fluffing up and going into their caves. Animals are growing that extra layer of warmth. And we are also going into this time of the fallow, the season of winter, where we're going inwards and retreating. So that's kind of seasonally and as a month. But what's happening planetary wise? So on Sunday, we see that there's a new moon in Gemini on the 23rd of May. What does that mean? So Gemini, as most of you know, is a very mental mind, busy-minded sign. It's about the ability to respond, to be sociable, to be changeable, to be flexible, to talk. It's a communicator, and it's governed by the planet Mercury. So Mercury is all about communication. We know this. So what's happening? And I'll talk about that in a minute with Mercury retrograde. But Gemini is that very active mind, an active personality. So we have the moon entering into Gemini on Sunday and bringing with it new beginnings. Now, the thing with communication is, how are we communicating internally with ourselves? What is the deep internal communication dialogue that we have with us? Is it positive and is it negative? Ask yourself. So when the moon shines and it's a new moon, so it's a new beginning, what is it that you need to change about the way you're talking to yourself, the way you're talking to others? So let's go internally and then externally. Now in May, we also saw from the 11th to the 14th of May, we saw 3 major planets going into retrograde. So Saturn on the 11th of May is in retrograde until the 29th of September. Now Saturn is the old healer, the wise old healer, that asks us to have a look at what is it that needs healing from the past. So these are deep wounds, things from a long way back that are possibly coming up before you in your life right now. Also think about Saturn being the planet where your life and your major life lessons, your life, your career, your business, your wealth, it's a period of where your restrictions, limitations, boundaries, and all of those things that you generally think about in your growth, you know, things that are challenged. So those are the things that Saturn brings. So it's really challenging you in thinking about, you know, what are my old belief systems and my old wounds? What are my limitations? And it kind of shines the light on it when it goes into retrograde and challenges you to heal that area of your life. Now that planet is in retrograde until September. So it's really a period of healing, deep, deep healing. So if there's stuff that's coming up for you and starting to come up, have a look at what you really need to work on right now at the deeper level. Now, a couple of days later, we had Venus going into retrograde. Now, Venus went into retrograde on the 13th of May and will be in retrograde until the 25th of June. What does Venus represent? She represents our romantic relationships, who you attract in your life, how you attract them, your social skills, how affectionate you are, and what you consider beautiful and nurturing. Now, beauty is one of these subjective things. You know, something beautiful to one person is not beautiful to another person. Are you getting distracted by things that you consider of beauty? You know, sometimes people find that it's easier to get distracted than do the thing that they know that they need to do. So beauty is, as I've said before, is subjective to, you know, who is seeing beauty. So when you think about things that bring you into the present, it is actually nature, the things that are out there, the elements. And that's why most people say, you know, if I'm feeling stressed, I go out in nature. I like to feel the grass underneath my feet. I like to go and look at the ocean view. I like to go for a walk. I like to see expansiveness of, whether it's a mountaintop or the beach. So always it's that beauty is, the ring that I wear on my finger, the beautiful piece of jewelry that I have, or the clothes that I wear. So, how superficial beauty is dependent on you and how you're perceiving life. Because we know that these things, these clothes and jewelry and cars and things like that, these physical things that we don't actually take anywhere with us. So Venus is challenging you to have a look at what you consider to be beautiful and of beauty in your life. Also, remember, in relationships, are there inherent things that you need to work on in your relationship? And remember, your primary relationship is with yourself. What are the flaws in your relationship with yourself? How do you interact with you, and how do you interact with others? Do you get frustrated and impatient? Are you patient? Are you empathetic? So have a look at the core relationship with yourself, how you speak to yourself and how you are with others, your romantic relationships. This is a time where Venus is asking you to review you and relationships. If you're trying to attract somebody in your life, this probably isn't a good time to be looking at that, because you're actually investigating, what am I like in relationships? So consider this period to be a period of just sitting in that space of, what am I attracting in my relationships? And that's also friendships as well, and family members. So don't be restricting yourself to it just being a partner relationship. Now, the next day, the 14th of May, saw the planet Jupiter go into retrograde, and that one is also in retrograde until the 12th of September. So who is Jupiter? Now, Jupiter is an interesting planet, and I like to think of Jupiter as a planet that is kind of like the new healer, the new wise healer. Now, Jupiter governs your ethics and your philosophy on life. It also considers whether you think you're going to be abundant. Now, abundance is an interesting thing, because quite often I hear people, especially in my coaching work, actually find it difficult to visualize what they would like for themselves in their future and manifesting what they would like. And even people that have the scarcity or abundant viewpoint as well, and belief systems. So Jupiter governs how you're going to learn and how you're going to benefit from that knowledge. So Jupiter is also about luck. So think about the luck that you're having at the moment. And yes, if you've noticed that things aren't working out lately, yeah, because Jupiter is in retrograde. So have a think about your philosophy in life, where you're lucky, where you're feeling abundant, where you're cautious, where you're learning from, and how you can benefit from having knowledge. Knowledge is just not information. Information is just knowledge. It turns into wisdom when you've learned something, when you've learned from that experience. Think about your own ethics and your own values. So when you think about the three major planets that have gone into retrograde, and they're in retrograde till around that July-August period, what's June bringing to us? Now, June is bringing to us, on the 7th of June, a partial eclipse of the moon in Sagittarius. Now, what does Sagittarius represent? So all of those Sagittarius people, so this is all about that optimism and enthusiasm that we have, that desire for adventure. But then on the flip side, there's also that restlessness and a little bit of spontaneity, being risky and being irresponsible. So if you think about the moon represents our feelings. It governs your emotional attachments. When things get hard, sometimes you often want to just throw the towel in and think, oh, stuff it. Is this what you're doing? Or are you risk-taking? Are you restless? A restless energy, and then governed by the moon energy, just smacks of a little bit of maybe risky spontaneity behavior. So watch out for that at the beginning of June. we also go into a Mercury retrograde. Now, poor Mercury gets a bit of a bad rap. So on the 18th of June till the 12th of July, our lovely planet, the communicator, will go into retrograde. And people tend to talk about Mercury in retrograde and blame it for all sorts. Please don't do that. Please have a look at all of what's happening at the moment, not just what's happening with Mercury. So this governs IT, technology, communication, phones, mobiles, all of your computer systems. So my advice is always, it's a time for you to reflect. Do some of the back end stuff, do the paperwork stuff. Now, the thing with Mercury, it's in retrograde for 3 weeks, but 2 weeks either side of the planet going into retrograde and out of retrograde is always the shadow period. So from around the beginning of June, so that's probably around the 4th of June, just watch the shadow period where the little bits and pieces start to happen before the actual retrograde takes place. On the 20th of June, we see a solar eclipse in Cancer. The solar eclipses are amazing because obviously there's the solar is the sun is our masculine, our father. It's about our basic dislikes and likes, your vitality and how you express and identify yourself and your I am. So the I am is the ego and your motivation. Now, as a solar eclipse, what we're seeing is a little bit of shadow on that eclipse. So what's that shadow? What's that solar eclipse bringing up for you? It's really interesting when you start to delve into the I am. Now, that solar eclipse is in Cancer on the 20th of June also. So we've got 2 eclipses happening with the new moon and also with the full moon. So there's a lot of things happening with shadow work. Now, the Cancer is also that gentle, conservative, nurturing, contemplative time. So the fact that it's happening at the time of the moon, the new moon as well, if you have a look at the theme and the pattern, there's a lot of things happening in June with our moon, new moon and full moon. Now, a few days later, after that solar eclipse in Cancer, we've also got Neptune, another planet going into retrograde until November. What does Neptune represent? Now, Neptune governs what inspires you and where you're easily deceived. It's about illusion, confusion, imagination, and creativity. So Neptune's kind of like this slippery, Neptune's it's like a water planet. So water, it's really hard to tie down and hold on to, isn't it? If you think about water, it just goes through our hands, we drink it, flushes out. So it's an area where you thought was real that isn't. So because Neptune's that illusion, it's like, where are you holding illusions in your life? Where are you not seeing the truth and reality? Neptune also governs addictions. So where have I got addictions? Drugs, alcohol, food, emotions, behavior. So there's a lot of things going on in June as well. So Neptune's about that blind spot. Where are my blind spots? If you don't know what your blind spots are, it's going to cause you a lot of problems. You're not going to see things coming. So on the 25th of June, we've got the Venus retrograde ending. So that's, as I've talked about before, Venus governing relationships. So thank goodness something's coming out of a retrograde. So what's happening, what would I summarize as the theme for kind of April, May, June? So it's a period of reflection. It's a period where I would recommend that you stop trying to do and push, but just try and sit back and be in a reflective, healing space. Be the observer. Be the observer of what's coming. Observe yourself and your reactions. That's what the universe is asking for cosmically. There's lots of shadow work, and if you've never done shadow work, there's no time that's perfect than now. Shadow work can be some of the most painful, hard, but also most rewarding. And if you say to people, let's uncover this stuff that's been sitting there that you haven't delved into for a while? What's that stuff that you've been avoiding? You know, most people will run a mile, but there are very few, some of us, that will actually go, right, I'm ready to deal with this because I'm not happy to be like this or to be doing this. It's blocking me, it's stopping me from moving forward. So the choice is always yours. You know, we have free will and versus, you know, what are we here to learn? So the big questions and big things happening, and I've given you a little bit of insight. I hope that you can take it easy, take it slow. If there are anything, any practices that you really need to take on board now, I would recommend meditation, journaling, slowing down, going out, being in nature, pausing for a while. Don't make big decisions. Mercury retrograde, it's always a given not to go into any contracts, go into anything new, anything to do with contracts and sort of legal things. It's just good to sit and wait and just put the pause button, you know, press that pause button on your life at the moment. It's not long. There are a lot of things happening right now, and there will be for the coming months. So I will check back in and let you know at the end of June what's coming for the next quarter and July, because things don't stop there. Remember, when you've got a tidal wave of cosmic energy and vibrational influences happening, we're talking from the sun and the moon and planets, and there's a lot of shifts happening. It's really time for you to take it slow. So I would love to hear your feedback, take a look at some of the other work that I do on my website, www.sunita.com.au. We do a weekly meditation and send out healing, because it is really a time to receive a weekly download, I think, of the theme of the week. And I'm doing that on a Wednesday evening. So feel free to subscribe to that. It's free for the first few weeks. And I get to tune into the cosmos and seeing how the energy shifts all the time, and giving out healing selflessly is also a beautiful thing, because not only do we need it for ourselves, but it's also in selflessness that we send it out to others who are in need all around the world as well. So I hope you've enjoyed listening, and stay tuned in for the next session, and I will hear from you soon. Take care.